Welcome to the second part of our 2-week special on bringing your pets over to Spain and looking after them whilst they're here. In the first episode with Rebecca from the Vets Clinic in Hondon, we covered the importation of your pets into Spain, and this week we're going to be looking after their welfare whilst they're here. So welcome to the second part of our two-part special about animal welfare here in Spain. Carrying on from last week's episode, we're now going to fire straight in and looking at the animal welfare when you brought your dog over to Spain. So, Rebecca, what do we need to look after? Your dog's got here safely with all the paperwork and it's all been prepared, as we spoke about in the last episode. What do they need to do when they're here? Do they need to come and register with you? What precautions do they need to take in order to give the dog the lifestyle they need?
Yeah, well, it would definitely be good to, once you're in Spain and settled, to register with the local vet. Obviously, that's to orientate yourself if there was any problems, any emergencies. But you already know where you're going, you know where the clinic is. That's really important to register with your local vet. And there are a couple of things. We can also register the pet and their microchip from the Vets Clinic with the local authorities. So that's with Rivia in the case of in the Comunidad Valenciana. And so that would mean that if the pet was lost, then the Spanish database would be able to pick up.
Is a UK chip readable here in Spain?
It's readable, yeah. So chips will be international, so they're readable anywhere, but then it depends on what database there's access to. So unfortunately, there's not a Europe-wide database. It is all different. It's all different per country, and within Spain, it's for each community. So it's for each.
So Murcia will have a different one to Valencia.
Exactly. So Valencia's got a different database than Murcia. So we would be able to register them with the local database, and then if the police or anyone else passed a microchip, they'd immediately have access. Whereas it would be quite difficult for them to find the animal on a Dutch or on a UK database. Okay, so that's one part would be registering. A few things to consider, especially with dogs here. That vaccines are required yearly for the rabies. So whereas in other countries often we put that they're valid for 3 years in Northern Europe, here if you're resident here, then the dog should be vaccinated yearly for rabies. Okay, and also it is yearly a legal requirement that they're yearly given a tapeworm dose. Although depending on the dog and the lifestyle, actually the vets we recommend monthly or quarterly, but that would be dependent on the lifestyle of the animal. So that's for tapeworms. So they're the two things that are controlled. Would be the worming and the rabies vaccine. Obviously, other vaccines for the general health of the animals, as you would put in any other country, will still remain necessary and remain the same as in other countries. So trying to stick on things that are specific to Spain that you maybe wouldn't find certainly coming from Northern Europe. Are some of the infectious diseases that you most likely heard about. The two most common ones we heard about would be leishmania, which is a mosquito-borne disease. And so is heartworm, another mosquito-borne disease, okay? And then we've got the tick-borne diseases, which would be Ehrlichia, Anaplasma, and Babesia. There are tick-borne diseases in Northern Europe as well, just slightly different. So, again, luckily, nowadays we're able to prevent a lot of these diseases. So there's collars that they can have on for 8 months, or pipettes that you would put on every month.
These are little droplets that you put on the scruff of the neck.
On the back of the neck. Unfortunately, there are a lot of collars and pipettes available in the market, but only a certain few trusted brands would be proven to prevent these diseases.
Would you take your vet's hat off for a moment, or maybe not? Would you say not to buy them on the internet because you don't really know what you're buying, or are there brands that you would?
There are certain brands that you can buy on the internet, but certainly I would have that recommended from the brand that you're dealing with. Okay, because there are a lot of brands, certainly the ones unfortunately available in supermarkets, that that aren't effective. Okay,
Well,
so
not
that can, so they can be not effective. So there'll be certain brands that the vets, I mean, certainly they can already advise you before you travel, but we can certainly advise on which particular brands of pipettes and collars are worth using. Okay, so that's really important, preventing that an insect will bite your pet in the first place. And then luckily as well, nowadays there are vaccines to prevent leishmania and also to prevent heartworm. So these are annual vaccines that again can be done when you get here. They take a little while to work as well, so we definitely wouldn't use them instead of preventing with a collar or a pipette. We would use them as well as doing that, because they work in different ways. Obviously, preventing the animal being bitten by the parasite in the first place is very important, and the vaccines work on by preparing the immune system for if, unfortunately, the animal does get bitten by the parasite. Then they're less likely to go on and develop the disease. Sure. The immune system's prepared to fight that disease. Okay, so there's two ways there of preventing these diseases in your pets. There is also some changes you can do with using mosquito nets if they're sleeping outside, or ideally having your pet sleep inside between dusk and dawn. Okay. Cats aren't as affected by these diseases, although tick diseases we would always recommend putting on a pipette. There's not much difference from the pipettes you're probably using in Northern Europe though as well, because obviously ticks can be a problem in Northern Europe. So for cats, leishmania and heartworm aren't such problems here in this part. They're not impossible, but it's very, very, very rare.
It's just better to be safe than sorry.
So it's mainly in dogs. However, cats, especially if they're going to have an indoor-outdoor life, if they're going to have access outside, which is we would always recommend that they're fully vaccinated against feline leukemia virus as well. That's often already done in Northern Europe as well. It's a very common vaccine worldwide, but we do recommend that, as unfortunately the feral population, we do have a lot of cats that do have this virus. So there are a few things that you can sort of be prepared for, but it just needs a little bit of organisation, a bit of planning, making sure pipettes are put on at the correct time or bought at the appropriate moment and applied, and then hopefully we can prevent any of these diseases, and the pet can enjoy their new life here.
Brilliant, yeah.
In the sun.
And I think it's there are so many people with pets when they come over here, and so many people, they retire and then they decide they're going to have a dog, or they rescue a dog from one of the dog rescue charities, and these animals lead an absolutely fantastic life. They're outdoors every hour that they possibly can be because they're out in the sunshine, things like that. And this video is more about just preparing you and getting you up to date with some of the things that you might not know from Northern Europe. One thing that somebody was speaking to me about, how do vets' prices compare maybe to the UK? Would you say are they comparable, or? They
would get. I would say on the whole they'll probably be seen as quite a lot cheaper here. Although I would say the standard of work would be the same. However, the main difference you'll see is that insurance isn't so common here. Okay. So that's why I think that a lot of the prices remain lower compared to Northern Europe. And that's largely because we don't do direct claims with insurance companies, whereas the majority of clinics, certainly in the UK, do.
Brilliant.
Doesn't mean you can't insure your pet. It's still definitely something we would hope more people would take up, but it's just not as common.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's covered everything that we wanted to cover in this episode. It's, for once, we've got somebody qualified to answer the questions rather than me dealing with them. So thank you very much, Rebecca. We're going to put all of her details on the screen at the end. So if you need to be in contact, it's great to know that if you are moving to the Hondon Valley or the surrounding area, because you cover more than just the Hondon Valley, that until Spanish is your preferred language, that you've got somebody that you can speak to in English, and right here in the heart of the Hondon Valley. So that's it for this episode of 2 Minute Tuesday. Hopefully we'll see you for the next episode. But from both of us this week, thank you very much. Adios.
Thank you.